On this episode of the Hogsty, we're joined by Joel Corry from CBS Sports to talk about the Kirk Cousins debacle. Plus, we do a position group breakdown on running backs. Next on the Hogsty.
Welcome to the Hogsty with your crew, Adam Taraski, Alex Zeese, Sean Conti, and Steve Thomas. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Our next guest is Mr. Joel Corry. Joel is a longtime NFL player agent who founded Premier Sports and Entertainment. He now spends his days as the contract and agent expert for CBS Sports. He was previously on our show back at the end of the 2016 season to talk about this very same subject. Please welcome Joel Corry. Well, let's get right into the Cousins situation because today was franchise tag day. And as we all know, that today was the day that the Redskins and Kirk Cousins had to sign a long-term deal or play on the tag. So the basics of it here, you know, we heard reported in CBS Sports and others that the Redskins had offered 5 years, $110 million back in May. There was not a counteroffer, and the Redskins didn't really make another attempt to sign him. So what happened? Why didn't the deal get done today?
Well, when you say 5 years, $110 million, you really have to add the franchise tag to that because it's 6 years total, which puts it at basically Joe Flacco money in terms of the overall dollars. Mm-hmm. Yes, $52 million would be fully guaranteed at signing, but that wasn't going to be enough considering 24 of it is his own money. And if you put a transition tag on him next year, that gets you to that point. And when Bruce Allen says a franchise tag is potentially in play, you're going to have to exceed that number just to get Cousins or his agent Mike McCartney's attention. I don't blame them for not making a counteroffer, given Bruce Allen's attempt at spinning it in the Redskins' favor and potentially poisoning the fan base against Cousins. Because let's say he puts an offer out there and was like, bare bones, this is what it would take to get done. And I suspect that might have been over $26 million, where you're going to have more than $60 million fully guaranteed at signing, and you're probably going to be in the Andrew Luck neighborhood for total guarantees. That would have given Bruce Allen the opportunity to say, look how greedy Kirk Cousins is being. He's not Andrew Luck. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Matt Ryan, and he wants to be paid significantly more than these guys. That would have been the narrative as opposed to Bruce cherry-picking his offer and releasing the details which put him in the most favorable light.
Let's talk about that statement. Well, let's talk about that statement because I think it's safe to say at least the Washington, D.C. area media didn't take too kindly to this statement, and I think a lot of people took it as the Redskins trying to spin it to their favor, but the reality is I think everybody saw what you said, which is the $53 million is really just the guarantee plus a year. Is this really a case of the Redskins truly trying to kind of poison the waters against Cousins?
Notice he said quarterback and not highest paid player, because Ndamukong Suh had almost $60 million fully guaranteed at signing, and something's wrong when a defensive tackle has the most money fully guaranteed at signing an NFL contract. It's supposed to be a quarterback, for the first thing. And two, the offer was May 2nd. Things changed after May 2nd. Yet Derek Carr dropped about a month later.
Right.
So he's not. That's now obsolete once the market changes. So given the relative leverage of the situation, the Redskins need Kirk Cousins on a long-term deal more than he needs them, because they don't have a legitimate alternative right now to be a viable option going forward in 2018. They needed to do more of the heavy lifting and more of the conceding. So I could see that maybe McCartney, I wasn't there when they met, so I don't know exactly what went on, but I suspect that McCartney probably said when he was given this offer that it's a little light, probably brought up that Carr's probably going to get done, and any deal that we're going to sign is going to have to reflect where Derek Carr's in the marketplace. And you feel free to give us a revised offer once that deal is in place, and maybe we can go from there. Redskins did not do that. That's the same thing last year. They didn't make a revised offer after Brock Osweiler hit the marketplace, and obligatorily you should have done that last year because the offers were low ball. I'm not going to call this one low ball because it's a significant offer, but still not where it needed to be if you're going to get Cousins and McCartney to bite.
So, quick question, because I actually, just off opinion, I didn't necessarily think that, just off of reading earlier and trying to understand it didn't seem like, in terms of guarantees, after, the first 2 years, it didn't seem like it was going to be much. I think if my numbers were right, it was like $29 million over a total of the five remaining years on the contract, or something in that range. I'm not specifically sure. But my question is, you said it wasn't a low offer per se, but at the same time, like, why do you think that specifically? Why do you think that they didn't feel like it was worth making any type of, I would say, I guess, making any type of counter offer, after the Carr deal, or even for the Redskins? Why did they not up their ante after the Carr deal? If you know.
Well, typical negotiation protocol is one side gives an offer, the other side counters. But there are situations where asking the other side to counter isn't unreasonable. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes you don't have to give a counter offer. You can give your thoughts, give your general ideas of where you're going, and that is in lieu of a counter offer. If McCartney did that, then the Redskins very easily could have come back and given him an adjusted offer, or he could have said some parameters that I'm not going to take anything seriously that you guys give me unless it reflects the fact that if I play on a franchise tag this year and next year, I'm going to be at basically $58 million. Mm-hmm. And the average is going to have to reflect the whole franchise tag dynamic that you guys have set up by placing the tags on them for a couple of years. And if your offers aren't in there, I'm not going to respond. He may have said that, and Bruce didn't put that out there. Whenever, I don't know the details between the two, but it wouldn't surprise me if he took that type of approach to things. McCartney, that is.
Okay. Also, and based on how everything's played out so far, off what we know, based on how everything's played out so far, it seems as if, like, we think it doesn't seem like they changed anything since May 2nd. And obviously, as we know, like, a time to get a deal done at a price that was favorable for the Redskins down the road would have been last year. But I mean, another question is, and a lot of us think like this: do you think that there's a lot of feelings involved in terms of, like, whether it be, I guess, downright negative on either side? Do you think there's feelings involved in why, I guess, another deal or another offer hasn't been made?
Well, usually when you have some sort of deadline, it's usually going to create some sort of movement. Mm-hmm. And the side that needed to get the deal done more desperately were the Redskins, because Cousins, he's sitting there, I'm good. I can make 44 over 2. You need to knock my socks off. So come back to me. I would imagine McCartney said that at some point in time. I don't know why the Redskins didn't do that. Maybe they felt it was exercise in futility because they were never going to get to where an offer needed to be in order to get something done. There have been the reports about the fundamental disagreement on his value, and if they can't even agree internally on how to value Kirk Cousins, then how are they going to be able to get a deal done? That was, once I saw that, I was like, this deal's never getting done this year. Now, I think there are probably some feelings more on the Cousins side, their camp, than on the Redskins, because the whole thing was handled from the beginning, which has been a textbook on how not to sign your starting quarterback. Because quality quarterbacks are a commodity in which the demand exceeds the supply. So when you have one, most teams are afraid of the unknown and will move heaven and earth to go ahead and sign a quarterback, which is why sometimes you've seen some deals in the past few years which were head-scratching, like the Jay Cutler deal, which at the time seemed to be a lot of money for a guy that had great arm talent and never really produced on the field the way he was supposed to. So I'm sure last year was taken in the equation, and then once he proved himself, won the bet, in my opinion, by coming back and having a similar type year, if not better than 2015, it was up to the Redskins to acknowledge that immediately or acknowledge that while the season was going on. And that probably would have bought them a little bit of goodwill. If this statement or Bruce's comments today are any indication of how they've handled things with Cousins in their dynamic with him and his agent, they never did enough to buy any type of significant goodwill. So I think that when a player wins a bet like that, he wants that to be acknowledged, and then that can be put behind him, and you can go from there. Now, if they've made the offer that they made in March, that may have changed the dynamics a little bit, because that would have set an expectation that there would be another offer, which would be more, and Cousins' side may have been more receptive to having some movement or submitting an offer, but that didn't happen.
Now, Joel, this is Steve. What happens next year? We're going to play on the franchise tag this year, and we're going to be right back in the same situation. Come the 2017 off season or 2018 off season, rather. Is Kirk going to be a Redskin, or is some other team going to sign him and he going to move on? I mean, what happens from here? Do you
jokingly,
think?
But he could put his house on the market today and then try to find a real estate agent in the Bay Area. Because I think that the franchise tag, a third one, that's not a realistic option. It's implausible, given it's basically $34.5 million. Why Bruce put it out there like it could be a possibility next year, I'll never understand. Because all that
why Bruce does a lot of things we don't understand these days.
He hurt himself. To me, he hurt himself, because to me, I would hear that and go, okay, that's 44 over 2. That's 78.5 over 3. And then I can leave the next year
if
I want to, or you can sign me to a long-term deal after I've made an average of $26 million per year. Any quarterback would probably take that. Start with this whole dynamic starting last year. So I think he's probably going to be a free agent, because the transition tag has limited value to me, because there are enough teams out there that will have the cap room, particularly San Francisco. They're probably going to have over $100 million in cap room. They could put together an offer sheet that the Redskins can't or won't want to match, and I'll give you an example of how that could work. One, you could fully guarantee the whole contract. They're not going to want to do that.
Right.
Two, you could have a huge roster bonus in the first year, which takes up a ton of cap room. They've got 100. They can spend half of it that way. Or if you really wanted to get a little creative, instead of having it be a roster bonus, you could make it a signing bonus or record signing bonus. You stick a void in there under Cousins' sole control after the first year, which means that the signing bonus isn't prorated and all counts in 2018. Have a clause where you can't franchise him after the void. And would the Redskins really want to match something like that if that's the route San Francisco went? And the thing is, it would be his right to void. Not that he would have to, but he'd have the option to void. So there could be an understanding that if the offer sheet isn't matched, then he's never going to void. But at the same time, we give him the flexibility to walk out after the Redskins after making, $55 million in one season? Yeah. Redskins probably wouldn't want to match that deal. So that's why I think the transition tag could have limited value.
Yeah.
Do agents and players talk about the respect that they feel from the team? And the reason I ask is my opinion of this whole situation today is that this is sort of the Redskins' way of, in a roundabout way of saying, we really don't want you. When we make the offer we make and we know you're not going to take it and we don't really try and we know you're going to basically be gone next year. Is this the Redskins showing a lack of respect to Kirk, and is that something that the agent is going to talk about, or is it just numbers and business?
Well, in terms of the locker room, players use money as a measuring stick, and it's a sign of respect. Richard Sherman said that a couple of years ago. That's always been true. You would not believe the number of conversations I had with an agent about how things work around the league salary-wise, or when someone did a deal that was an inferior player to a guy represented, it would be venting about how did that guy get this much money? He ain't that good. And I'm like, oh, great. Have that conversation, remind the player, you signed your deal 2 years ago, and whenever you sign a deal, it's going to be used as a stepping stone for other deals. and have to go through that whole conversation. So, yeah, the agent's going to see the offers last year really as a sign of disrespect, and that's still going to be in the back of his mind. So, yeah, the whole respect factor plate comes into the equation.
Speaking of that kind of relationship with how you guys see deals on the player side, have the Redskins and Cousins kind of changed the way that teams and players are going to view this franchise tag being used? I mean, we're talking about a guy he's, a quarterback playing on it for 2 years in a row. It was kind of always seen as a deterrent for both sides, but, we're not really getting that vibe all of a sudden. Have they turned the tables, so to speak? And is this going to have an effect on how people kind of view the tag and use the tag in the future?
That's possible. Most players still aren't going to be crazy about the franchise tag because they'd rather get to the open market if they can and let that dictate their salary for better or worse. Quarterbacks, for some reason, seem to be the position least likely to fully exploit leverage or play things out. Seems like 9 times out of 10, a quarterback is going to sign an extension and not get into the franchise tag game and not totally get the money that he could get. That seems to be where quarterbacks go. I don't know if you're going to see that change. Maybe that will be interesting to see what happens down the road with Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston. I suspect Matthew Stafford's going to sign an extension, particularly after their president said something which was mind-boggling as well. We'll do whatever it takes to re-sign him. His franchise tag's $26.4 million next year. That's 120% of this year's cap number. So that's basically giving Tom Condon a ton of leverage that he may not have had otherwise. I mean, I think that deal will get done, even instead of Stafford going 26.4, 31.68, then probably being free after that. And he's in a position where he could do that more so than Cousins because he was one of those last number one picks that got paid like a Pro Bowler on his rookie contract as opposed to rookie wage scale, then signed what I call a bridge extension for 3 years. So he's made significantly more money than Cousins. So he's in a position to do that, but I don't think he's going to do it. So we'll see down the road if it has some sort of huge change in how the franchise tag dynamic is played. One thing we have seen is after the initial rollback of franchise tags in 2012, with them being tied to the growth of the cap, the franchise tag numbers, for the most part, are now higher than they would have been under the old methodology. And as long as the cap keeps growing, you're probably not going to see a lot of guys get franchised anyway because it's going to start to be very cost prohibitive.
Can't afford it. In your experience as an agent, what kind of reputation do the Redskins have in terms of the business of the NFL? And the reason I ask is, we do this show and we cover the Redskins every day, and we hear a lot of disparate opinions from the fans, mostly negative. But we're caught up in this Redskins world. From an objective standpoint, you've dealt with every team. What reputation does this group really have?
Well, it's not what it used to be. It used to be the Redskins would spend money like drunken sailors on players that didn't make a lot of sense. Like, let's go out and pay Bruce Smith and Deion Sanders like they're in their prime when they're in the twilight of their career, or let's throw a lot of money at Albert Haynesworth. They haven't been that Redskins in a few years. Maybe it's because the cap penalty really curbed their spending, but they do come out and take their swings like they did with Josh Norman, but for the most part, they've been more disciplined financially than they historically had been since Dan Snyder's owned the club. He seems to not be as hands-on as he had been in those earlier tenures, but then again, you did blow McLuhan out of there, so...
Yeah, actually, can I ask you, does that impact
for stability?
Does that impact how agents see a team? If, like, I mean, McClune, we know, was a respected general manager, at least from the public perspective. Does that change how, agents would see what the team did this offseason between McClune and this whole Kirk Cousins saga?
Yeah, it sends a signal of dysfunction because he's well respected, and you knew what you were getting with him in terms of some of his issues. So, great talent evaluator, and typically you get a great talent evaluator. You try to keep someone like that. When he was hired, it put the Redskins in a different light because it's like, now that's a great hire. Now, the way that all transpired with his departure, it's like they took one step forward and two steps backwards in that regard.
It's a very Redskins thing to do. Joel, we've kept you way past the time that we said we would. We'd like to thank you very much for coming on the show once again.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure, thanks for having me.
We'd like to have you back sometime in the future.
Oh, no problem. Just let me know.
Yeah, and Joel, what's your Twitter handle and stuff so people can, track with everything you're doing real quick?
Yes, it is Corry Joel, CORRYJOEL, and I'm going to have a What's Next for Kirk Cousins article coming out on CBS probably tomorrow.
Okay. So that'll probably be today for you fans who listen to this, since I'm probably not going to stay up till midnight editing.
We should. All right. Thanks very much, Joel.
All right.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Guys, we had some tricky stuff that happened in the behind the scenes there, but better than our last interview, which had even more errors on my part.
We've had a string of weird technical errors, and when we have important guests on,
I don't know what that's about. I don't know what that's about.
We can blame the last one on your cat, and we'll blame this one on my poor internet connection.
Yeah, which is amazing. you would think that the internet would just work all the time, but it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah, just like the Redskins front office just doesn't work sometimes.
What a transition.
Yeah.
10 out of 10, man. I give it 10 out of 10.
So, real quick, what did you guys think of Joel's comments? And then I guess we got to talk about the whole Kirk Cousins situation and give our thoughts, because that's going to be fun.
Well, I mean, Joel has a fairly objective view on these things.
Right.
He confirmed what I thought, which is the contract that the offer the Redskins made was clearly insufficient in terms of the market. It was never going to be signed, and everybody knew it.
Yeah.
They knew it when they made it. What was interesting to me is he said, that this gives Bruce Allen a way to say, look, we made a real offer.
Right.
And so they don't lose face, and he didn't have to go higher and then make it look worse. They made the minimum contract offer, and in Bruce's eyes, that's all they needed to do to save face in the franchise. Hey, look, guys, we tried. Kirk didn't want it at the end, and let's go smear his good name on the way out.
Right.
So that's the way I saw
it.
Yeah,
and like you said, Joel was great because he does have that more objective agent's perspective, which, I mean, you try and bring something like that too, but you were never an agent. You just worked on major deals. So it's good to get somebody who's done the agent thing where he's got to deal with those personalities that guys like Kirk Cousins. Yeah. And probably some guys who are even more difficult than Kirk Cousins at times.
This whole situation is just very difficult, and you could tell because, and Joel's answers and the way we even try to dissect it as fans, this whole situation is something like a lot of us we haven't really seen it before. You're dealing with a quarterback who's entering his second year plan on a franchise tag deal, and we talked about this before, off air. Kirk essentially flipped the leverage that the Redskins had on him onto he ended up having all the leverage. So trying to explain what's going on is just all it boils down to is the Redskins didn't know what they were doing from a long time ago. The Redskins brass, and it just went downhill ever since 2015. So, and that's what we're witnessing right now.
I did feel slightly encouraged that I think my numbers that I put out were right.
Well, and
my numbers from my big magnum opus a while ago were actually sort of where the Redskins needed to go.
Your numbers are kind
exactly.
of on par with guys like Joel and others who I've seen, just across the, Twitter sphere and the internet.
Yeah.
Who've all said...
well, it was kind of obvious when you look at it.
Right.
But, I mean, the thing is, my plan required the Redskins to be reasonable.
Right.
And they weren't reasonable.
No, they were not.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can say... hey, maybe if you kept your GM at least through the course of the season, you could have come up with a better idea of what was reasonable, or I don't know if you can put it on that or not. In the end of the day, I think Bruce Allen would have trumped Scott McLuhan no matter what.
I mean, I have a rant.
Go ahead.
So forgive me. I can't. This is like my best Chad Dukes impression, I guess, but I've been a fan for a long time. Mm-hmm. You have too. I've been a fan for much longer than you have, since the early 80s. And I've watched this team through thick, through thin, through Super Bowls, through the worst of times, and it is so frustrating to me when after 25 years of looking and hoping and praying for a guy to lead this team, they finally found it.
Yeah.
I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he's the greatest quarterback ever. I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback. But this is a guy who the Redskins finally found. They drafted him to lead, and they figured out almost by accident that he fits Jay Gruden's system perfectly. He can win with, as long as he has talent in front of him. He can put up monster stats. This is the guy that we always wanted for years. You can say, you said it earlier today, Alex, off the air. You can go back to Theismann probably before you get a guy who could have been here with the Redskins for a long time,
right.
and we'll see where it goes. Well, so what do? They screw it up in the worst possible way. It is just an inexcusable. It's Redskins management negligence. Mm-hmm. It's they took the most important position on the field that it took them decades to find, and the first thing they do is completely botch it. And now he's probably going to leave, and it's just an insult. It's an insult to our intelligence. In this statement that Bruce put out, I missed a little part of the what Joel said about it because we had the technical problem, but I thought the statement was an insult.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was an absolute insult to Kirk Cousins, and it's just the most transparent bunch of crap I've ever read. It is just awful.
I'll give them this.
Honestly, it's like you knew if a deal wasn't gonna get done, and they prefaced it, prefaced it, whatever the word is, damn it, a couple hours before the deadline. No matter what, Bruce Allen is giving a statement at the deadline time. So we already knew that he was going to have a statement ready for us because the deal wasn't going to get done. Mm-hmm. And he went out there and said, "Look, we did all we can do. Damn it, he didn't want to sign here. We tried to make him the highest paid quarterback. We might try to make him the highest paid quarterback at signing in terms of guaranteed money, and he didn't take it. So we did all we could do." It's on Kirk Cousins to get this deal done, and it didn't happen. They didn't offer a counter, so we're hoping we can get something done next year.
And not only that,
I mean,
but it was like, just Bruce, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say,
I could talk for an hour on this.
I believe Comcast kind of put it out. Bruce Allen's going to do his interview at 5:30. As soon as they wrote that, I put on Twitter, watch him throw somebody under the bus. This is what he does. He's going to throw someone under the bus. This is ASAP, a standard Allen practice.
And Joe spoke to it too.
Well,
not only did
he doesn't do a good job.
Joe spoke to it.
Yeah.
That once we had mentioned that that he was going to be the highest paid quarterback, you got to remember, like I said, Joe spoke to it that he specifically mentioned highest paid quarterback at signing in terms of guaranteed dollars. That was only 53 guaranteed. He mentioned Sue, who made, I don't remember the exact number, but it was over 60. Oh, it was at 60 on the dot. Okay, so 60 in guaranteed money. That's really not anything in terms of signing. And knowing that quarterback is your, the most valuable position in the NFL, like just saying he's going to be the highest paid quarterback at guaranteed in NFL. I mean, at signing in NFL history, that's really not saying much. But
no, it's just a flat out lie by Bruce, and I don't know if he thinks the fans are stupid.
Yes,
if he actually believes that we were going to look at this statement and go, $53 million, Kirk is just an unreasonable bastard.
No, he does
and
think
not
that because
realize that when he was
that
talking.
was the immediate reaction if you looked on Twitter at some fans.
Yeah, it's just crazy. You guys out there who believe that are crazy. It was immediately clear that all he did was take the tag this year and add the transition tag this year and go, oh, guaranteed. Look, he's being unreasonable.
By the way, 53 for 6. We talked about the guaranteed number.
God.
It was a 6-year deal basically with only $53 million guaranteed. That's less than $10 million a year if you really want to break it down that you're offering to pay him.
And most of them are in the first 2 years.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously.
Yeah, all of it was the first 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, look, what the Redskins needed to do and what they didn't was they needed to give him a big signing bonus, guarantee 2 years, and then have the third year guaranteed once that league year starts. And they didn't get close to that. And I know some of you out there think, Kirk's being greedy, he's not worth this. But it's just, we said this a million times, it's just the fact of the matter is that was what needed to happen to get him signed. That's the market. I don't care if you don't believe that. That is the truth. And the Redskins really didn't make an honest effort to get this done, and I fault them for that. I think it's an insult to the fans that Bruce would just come out with this garbage and these lies like this. It's an absolute insult, and I think Bruce ought to be ashamed of himself.
I mean, this is
and
his
Bruce,
legacy.
if you want to join the show, come on. Show. Yeah, it is.
This is now going to be his legacy for good. I don't trust him to get the stadium deal done right at this point. I mean, I know we've talked about that a little bit online, you and I, Steve, today. I mean, what makes you think this guy's competent enough to get a $2 billion deal done when he can't get a single contract anymore?
Well, I actually have more faith in the stadium deal because the stadium deal is business. The football stuff Bruce is incompetent at.
Yeah.
He's just incompetent. But this is not personality driven. This is Bruce, and the stadium is Bruce in his element, dealing with politicians and governors and
politicians in Richmond don't like him because of the Richmond deal.
He got it ramrodded through, though, you see. I think the stadium deal is a whole different animal, and that is exactly what Bruce's wheelhouse is. Football stuff,
I would say I have no faith in him. He was supposed to do it in Oakland, by the way.
Fair enough.
Oakland was looking for a stadium way back when he was in charge there. And guess what? They're going to be playing in Vegas because guys like him couldn't get it done.
I'm not trying to defend him. I just spent 10 minutes on a rant.
No confidence. That's where I'm at with him.
If I had to pick one or the other, I'd say the stadium deal is more likely. But it's just, it's just like I thought we'd turned a corner.
Nope.
If you talked to us 2 years ago. In 2 off seasons ago, Scott McGowan's coming in. We had a great talent event. We thought Bruce would step back. We thought the dysfunction was over, and now we stepped right back into it. We ran off a court. We're running off a quarterback. Bruce Allen, who's not a talent evaluator, is our talent evaluator.
Right.
I don't know what Doug Williams' role actually is. After all this,
I don't think it matters.
Like
I think.
It's like we're flogging ourselves intentionally.
Bruce in one season has done as much damage as it took Vinny Serrato to do in almost a decade. In terms of this PR relationship with the.
I don't know if Jamal agrees with you on that one.
I'm talking purely from a PR perspective. Sorry, I should be more clear. In terms of public relations with this franchise, it took Vinny Serrato 10 years to get the fans to want him dragged out, kicking and screaming. Bruce has done it in an off season. It's really impressive if you want to think of it that way.
I mean, I agree.
Are you disagreeing, Jamal?
Bruce is, he's a character, man. It's only the simplest. I mean, it's crazy how Vinny was a character in his own right, and Bruce followed right up the year after Vinny was gone. So, I mean, it's not me. I don't want to pile on you guys did a lot already. So I'm not here to continually to pile on to Bruce. However, the one thing I really don't like after 4 o'clock is past is just the fact that you come out. It was just very disrespectful. The statement. You really didn't have to point fingers at all in your statement. You simply could have kept it professional, and instead you decided to point fingers, throw somebody under the bus, and damage the chances of you guys making a healthy relationship next year and getting a long-term deal done. It's not out of the realms of possibility, but you definitely damaged that chance, and it's probably over 50% that he's gone.
Well, I think it is.
Year, so.
Yeah, I think I think it's at least 50%. And Joel basically said it, in the interview. He said, essentially Cousins is going to be
Yep.
gone. I think this statement probably did more damage than even the contract negotiations.
Yeah.
Personally,
Yeah.
I think, because all they had to say in this, all Bruce had to say was, we negotiated with Kirk and his agents. Unfortunately, we were unable to reach an agreement, so we're very happy to have Kirk return, to the team on the franchise tag, and we'll address it next off season. Why is that so hard? Why do you have to go into these lies about all these?
We never heard back from
the,
them.
the phantom contract. It's just it's like you put these contract numbers out to make yourself look like you tried to give him the greatest contract in NFL history practically, and he was too greedy to take it. When anybody with a brain who's looked at this understands that it was all a lie, and I just don't like you Jamal said. Why do you have to be that unprofessional? Are you actively trying to drive a wedge between yourself and the quarterback?
Yeah.
I mean, is this? Are you doing it on purpose? What is it?
Here's what I'd say. Like, the thing where he says, we sat down with Kirk over the weekend and talked about it. Fine. Just leave it at that. Just say, we did that, we're not coming to an agreement, but we're all okay with that, and we're going to move forward. Something like that. It's not hard.
And before we move on to another topic, I do have to, I have to eat some crow on this. I said I would. I've believed all this time that this deal was going to get done. I put it in writing a couple times in columns. It didn't get done. Sorry. In my defense, what I will say is my belief that it would get done was based on a belief that the Redskins would come around and make a reasonable offer. And if they had done that, I think the deal would be done. But they never did,
No.
and that's why it didn't get done. So I eat crow in my prediction. I blame Bruce for the failure in my prediction to come true,
And for the failure of this franchise, which looks like it's going to be inevitable in about a year.
And don't forget that this comes on the heels of them running Scott McLuhan out of town on a web of lies and smears and allegations of just garbage that was.
They've learned and they had the
true.
balls to put their names to it this time.
Yeah, at least they said it in writing, as opposed to calling Kirk an alcoholic or something.
On the roster, that's why.
That's probably true. That's probably true.
Yeah, there you go.
I think we could rant on this for 2 hours if we wanted to, but perhaps it's time to move on.
Yeah.
We do actually have to address the running backs. We've come to almost the end of our position group breakdowns.
Yeah.
This is the second to last one. So running backs. So there's a number of running backs on the roster, but let's start with Rob Kelly.
Fat Rob
first.
Kelly.
And rather than me Fat Rob. So let's rather than me reading a bunch of stats, Jamal, give us your opinion on Rob Kelly in the role of 16-game franchise running back.
Well, personally, and I think for specifically last year, it's important for me to say, because last year, I thought that he was definitely capable of doing the 16-year load as the number one back. But I didn't necessarily think, like, in terms of his future in the NFL, I thought that he would be a great complementary back. For example, the roles of what's his name? Oh my goodness. He played for the Giants in like 2000. Brian Ward, I want to say his name was. He backed up Brandon Jacobs for a couple years. One of the years they went to the Super Bowl. But
I'm blanking on it too, Jamal.
But he was
sorry.
part of the three-headed monster. He had a couple 1,000-yard seasons down there, average over 4 yards per carry. You can look at these past couple years with what's his name? The couple people down in Kansas City. I'm really drawing blanks right now, but I was literally just talking about these guys.
You're talking about Jamal Charles?
But yeah, it was three-headed
in Kansas
monster.
City.
Like, Jamal Charles been injured the past couple years, so it hasn't been Jamal Charles. But people that's listening and got the names on the top of their head, they know exactly who I'm talking about.
You guys have to understand, we just spent 45 minutes ranting about Kirk
Cousins.
We changed gears pretty quickly there.
And I'm not saying he doesn't have the same skills as Tevin Coleman, but when I mean complimentary back, that's what he can be very good at. He's the guy who can thrive with, say, if the main back has 600. I said 600. Oh my goodness, forgive me. Say the main back has about 300 carries. He can thrive with 150, average over 4.5 yards a carry, and be very, very efficient with his carries. However, my tone has changed a bit this year. As a 16-game starter, I can see him, being very effective. And it's basically off the trainer that I've seen him handle like this year. Jay Gruden asked him to lose some weight.
He lost some weight.
Jay Gruden asked him to lose some weight. And what he did was he actually he shredded some fat. He got more tone, muscular. He gained some more strength, explosiveness. And these are things that you're going to need as a number one back if you want to be able to carry the load. And Jay Gruden expects him to be able to do that because he wants to run more with Fat Rob. So I think he's definitely capable in terms of a franchise running back, and I think we'll get that opportunity to see how he thrives in that role or how he responds to that role. So, I'm real positive on Rob.
Yeah. I'm very high on Rob Kelly for some of the reasons you stated. I think he does have the potential to be a franchise back, and he has gotten in better shape apparently this offseason and done what coaching staff wanted. If you look back, I went and looked at his game logs from last year, and he really became the number one back in week 6, and he had a string of a bunch of games, 3 in a row, where he averaged about 4.5 yards a carry, over 5.5 there, against Green Bay. It fell off a little bit for a couple games, so he had some inconsistent games. But to his credit, in his defense, those are games against Dallas, Arizona. He did well against Arizona. Carolina was the low point. But that's an outstanding defense. And listen,
that's what they do is they stop running backs.
Yeah, I mean, this kid is a rookie. He's, he's what is he? 20? He's 24 years old.
That,
he's got a lot of room for growth, and he's not the fastest guy. He's not the strongest guy. I think he's got good vision, and he runs hard. So I don't know if he's going to become, I don't know, O.J. Simpson in his future, but I think he can be a quality, say like top 15. Maybe top 10 running back when he matures.
I mean, the question for me about football, Fat Rob is he ever going to be an all the tools kind of running back? And by that I mean like a guy like Marshall Faulk, LaDainian Tomlinson, Clinton Portis, one of these guys who you can use him out of the backfield. He can block, and he's still a good runner. Those are rare. I think he could at least get close to that, but.
Well, he's not going to be LaDainian Tomlinson and Marshall Faulk. Those are Hall of Famers.
No. But when I say I just mean the guys who have every single skill set at some level or another.
I think he'll be more valuable because what we do know about Chris Thompson is that he's a very, very good third down running back. And one of the things you need as a third down running back is to be able to pass protect as well. You got to be able to hit them linebackers
and catch.
And catch. But you got to be able to strike the linebackers, the blitzing defender, and protect your quarterback from getting hit. One of the things when it comes to Rob Kelly, he's not really like there's a tail when you see a certain running back in there. And when it comes to Rob Kelly, you'll see him for a good amount of snaps. If there's a passing situation, you'll see him going for a dump off, like a short curl route or going to the flats.
Right.
Just to eliminate the fact that he has an assignment, he has to pick up somebody. Or if he's in the backfield, it's more likely it's going to be a run. So when it comes to Thompson, you can use him a lot of ways. But when it comes to Kelly, I think one of the things he has to learn is to be more efficient in the passing game, whether it be blocking or just like learning assignments.
Yeah, and
I think he can do that. I think he can get there. He has the physical skills for it. I think he has better hands than some people give him credit for.
Sure.
So I just I think people need to remember this guy's a rookie, and not only is he a rookie, but he didn't. He was at Tulane. He doesn't have as many carries and as much experience as people think. He got in trouble in Tulane. There in college. So I think he's only going to get better.
Yeah.
I think he has a bright future.
I definitely see an upside. More so than you can say about some running backs that we've had.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm still always kind of dreaming that we'll someday find our Brian Westbrook type, some guy who's going to be like a 2,000-yard running back. I don't know if it'll ever be Fat Rob, but he can at least.
They don't grow on trees.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah,
I
that's an
know.
elite
I know.
possession right there.
Yeah,
But the good thing is though, like we do
And
have
by the
a
way,
stable at running back. Like it's a stable of
We do.
stable of running backs, and I'm not really losing
Yeah.
any sleep off the fact that we don't have a do it all guy. It would be nice, and I would love to see it for a couple years. But I mean, I'm happy over Chris Thompson and P. Ryan and a few other backs. Obviously, Kevin involved too. So I mean, I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
Much.
Well, it's funny you mentioned stable. And by the way, Rob on the year had 168 carries, 704 yards for a 4.2 yard average, 6 touchdowns, no fumbles. But another guy that's in the stable running backs we have is a guy who's been here for a number of years now, Chris Thompson from Florida State, 5'8", 195. He's the classic third down back. Now, the only thing I would point out to you guys about this is that the Redskins had an opportunity to give him a multi-year deal this year, and they did not. Now he's playing on a tender contract. Right. So it makes me wonder if are they just trying to save money, or do they see some hole in Chris Thompson's game? So what do you guys
I think it was a Moneyball thing, and I think we've talked about this quite a lot today. Bruce is a cheapskate when it comes to paying these guys, so. I think that was strictly a Moneyball type move. I know Gruden loves Chris Thompson. Like every time you hear him talk about Chris Thompson,
he's a Gruden type of guy, isn't he?
He goes from to he's really he goes up one notch.
We need Robbie here
to
do the
Robbie's
Gruden
gone,
impression.
so you're stuck with me. But I mean, I love what Chris Thompson provides as that third down option. His speed on those outside runs, he had, you go back and look at what his numbers were last year. He really racked up some yardage for us in the end. And it wasn't like he was running downfield on deep balls. He was catching short passes and just picking up yards after the catch, and he was getting outside.
Chris Thompson actually has one of the best yards per carry in the league. He averaged 6.2 yards per carry in 2015 and 5.2 in 2016. He's got 106 carries, 584 yards on a career 5.5 yards per attempt. So I mean, it's a limited carries and it's a limited circumstance thing, but he's produced when given the opportunity.
I think he's the most complete back that we do have.
Yeah,
and
might be.
A lot of people.
Do you think he can? Do you think he can play inside though?
Like, I
that's
think
his weakness.
I think that's a knock on him, given that he's been injured in the past. But if you remember, and we'll see it this year too. If you remember, he's run inside the tackles. Like, I mean, you'll see him for the most part. He gets a lot of his yards on the outside the tackles, but he doesn't have any problem running in between the tackles and getting a couple yards. Like that hasn't been an issue with him, and they haven't shied away from doing that with him. I mean, obviously they prefer him run outside the tackles, and things like that, but it's something that's a knock on him, like in terms of perception. But I believe that he can do it. He hasn't really gotten hurt over these past couple of years.
Yeah.
So it was just the fact that 2013 and 14 he had injury-riddled seasons. So I don't really count that against him. I think he can do it.
Yeah.
I just think you have to use Chris Thompson right. I think at 5'8", 195, yeah, he can do it. But I think he's the type of guy that I think if you gave him 25 carries a game, this level of production wouldn't stay.
No. I think I think he had at least one game this year where he had 10 carries, but I could be wrong.
And I think that was his career high too. Like I know what you're talking about. It was something high.
Yeah, I think that's about all. And by the way, just as a personal note on Chris Thompson, I believe this past year his brother got out of prison, and it was his brother or his father. So
I didn't know that
story.
I remember.
His brother had been in prison and actually never seen him play at a high level of football, and so it was kind of a heartwarming story that his brother was able to finally get out and see Chris, play in the NFL. I think that was a pretty cool story. I don't know anything about why his brother was in. Yeah, well, I don't know why his brother was in prison, but he paid his debt to society, and I'm glad he's out and watching his brother.
Just keep your nose clean. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, just keep your nose clean. Now, listen, I mean, Chris is the type of guy who produced in college.
At a big school.
In college, at a big school, ACC program, and these guys need to produce in sort of like the 6.5 yards per carry range in college to end up being a decent running back. That's kind of, if you look at enough of this data, like I have, that's where you need to be, and that's exactly where he was. So I think he has a bright future here, but he's got the open contract question, on him. So I think we sort of have to see what happens. He needs to have a big year, because we have a lot of running backs in the stable who are aiming for his job.
And let's not forget, it is also just a position now where guys get rotated out after that contract. You don't last that long as an NFL running back. So I worry about that with a guy like Chris Thompson. I'd hate to see him go because I think he's carved out a great role for himself here.
Yeah, I agree.
But, it's that kind of thing in terms of the, just the way of the NFL when it comes to running backs.
Another guy who's trying to carve out a role for himself is
Samaje Perine.
Don't make me pronounce Samaje. Thank you, Samaje Perine.
I butchered it too. It's okay.
I mispronounced his name. Yeah, Samaje Perine. He's of course a draft pick out of Oklahoma. He had a productive college career when he played. He rushed for 4,122 yards, 6 yards a carry, 5'11", 233. Listen, this guy he's a bowling ball. He runs with violence.
His biceps. Have you seen those photos of him flexing that were making the rounds the other day?
Well, there's crazy stories about. Is it Jamal? Is it
Samaje?
Is that what it is? Samaje. Okay. Because you seem to be the only one that can pronounce it properly consistently.
I'm just writing out phonetically for myself.
There's all sorts of crazy stories about strength out there. There's a story. I think it's ESPN, the magazine, about how he lifted a car to let somebody, change a tire in college. Just like crazy, nutty.
That is a true story.
Things.
I hear, but I haven't heard what kind of car. Was it a Prius or was it a, like a little smart car?
Oh, I think it was. It was a smart car, but I mean, he did 30. He did 30. Well, could you lift a smart car, Jamal?
If I put my back into it, I probably can.
Remember, just lift all with your back.
Yeah, all my back. No legs, nothing else, just my back. That's what Peter Griffin.
But the point with some.
Yeah. With the hard arcing
thrusting motion. That could be taken a lot of ways.
Leave it up to Steve.
Okay. It's normally Alex that brings up those crude references.
Well,
But we got to get back to
let's get back to Perine.
Perine's performance. He ran a 4.65 40. He's not fast. Did 30. If you want an objective measure of his strength, he did 30 bench press reps, which is a whole lot, even for a running back. So, the question would be, what do we expect from Samaje Perine this year?
All right, now I have strong feelings about Perine here because you know this, Steve, because we've been doing this show for a couple of years. How long have I been looking for our Brandon Jacobs, our big back who can just bowl over people and can be that great goal line, short yardage situation guy? It's one of the. I
think you've been looking for him for quite a while.
It's one of those things that I just obsess about because I want to see us do to the Giants what they did to us for so many years. And I think this is another guy. He could be that guy. Fat Rob, for his name, a little smaller. A little quicker, but I see this guy being that perfect goal line situation back right away for us. He could be more. He could become more. I think there's a good upside to him. We keep hearing about great stories from him in college, great work ethic, all that good, all the stuff you want to hear. And at the same time, think about this. At Oklahoma, he was still the number 2 guy a lot of the time behind
Joe Mixon.
Yeah, Mixon. Thank you. The guy who got in trouble all the time.
I don't know how I remember that name, but I can't remember none of the names I was trying to use earlier. Jesus.
That's all right.
But you got Joe. You got Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
I mean, Jamal, what do you think about Samaje's chances of becoming kind of our go-to guy next year? Because the real question, and what the fans I think out there want to see, some of them, is that Samaje becomes our feature back. So what do you think about those possibilities?
Go ahead and put the stamp on this now. I'm doubling down on my confidence in Rob Kelly, and this isn't a knock on Samaje in no way, but I think that the one thing that I underestimated personally, and I thought that Samaje was going to be the number 1 back after we drafted him. I thought that's what he'll be, and I think he may be that he'll have a chance down the road after the 2017 season. But I think that I underestimated Kelly's his work ethic. I didn't think that I wouldn't say that I didn't think he took it serious. I don't know him. I don't know him enough to say that he didn't take it serious. However, I didn't think that he would respond the way that, like I said, Jay Gruden would ask him to respond. And if he takes care of his body in this way as an undrafted free agent to prepare for a workload that's gonna implement him heavy in the game plan, I cannot. And the way that he played in 2016, like he performed very well. So I cannot underestimate what he can do for this team this year, and I think that he refuses to let the drafted guy come in and take his spot. What I think P-Ron will do this year, however, is be that situational back. He can come in and spell Rob Kelly. I think that he'll come in on short down and distances, especially if Rob Kelly is getting a lot of workload on a specific drive. He may come in the short down, and P-Ron can catch. So if he's in on like a 3rd and inches or a 2nd and 1, 2nd and 3, 3rd and 3, anything like that, it can still be a play action because he doesn't have a problem catching the ball. So I think that he'll be a situational guy, and he'll definitely be able to get the tough yards that we need, especially if we need a fresh body in the backfield as well. So
yeah, I mean, P-Ryan had 40 catches for 321 yards in college, so yeah, he can catch.
What?
I not to pour water on the P-Ryan show, and I agree with you, by the way, Jamal. I think Rob Kelly's going to stand up and keep his job. If you recall, we had Steve Shoup on.
Sure.
I know at least Alex, you and I talked. I can't remember, Jamal, if you were on that. I don't know if you were not, but
I heard it.
Okay, well, Steve kind of poured some, kind of downplayed Oklahoma running backs a little bit, if I recall. He said, look, it's a Big 12, the defenses. He wasn't really sold on Joe Mixon. He wasn't really sold on P. Ryan, if I recall, because it was Oklahoma and it was the Big 12. And so, yes, this guy produced a ton in college, but remember that, one, he's a rookie, and just, for every Rob Kelly and Alfred Morris, there's 5 of them that don't produce like they did. So I mean, I hope he becomes the guy for us. But if you take Steve Shoup's word and you combine that with, look, just the guy's a rookie, and Rob Kelly kind of already has it rolling, I would be personally a little bit more cautious than some of the listeners out there about P. Ryan's chances of automatically just rolling in and becoming our version of Zeke Elliott. The good part, not the
part that's getting him suspended for a bunch of games this year.
Right. The on the field Zeke Elliott. I think it's a long shot to expect P. Ryan to come in.
I personally don't expect him to be Elliott. They're just different types of running backs, build wise and all that. But
I don't mean I just mean production wise. But if you're expecting that, I think it's a tough call.
The one comparison I've heard these 3 guys, who I think we all kind of agree at some level, this is probably the 3 guys that'll make up most of our running back core. There'll be another guy on the roster, obviously, who probably gets a couple carries, but it'll be these guys. The one comparison, somebody made it on Twitter, one of those official reporters, probably an old-timer like Boswell or somebody, he said it reminds him a lot of what the Redskins had in 91 with Biner, Irving, and Riggs, where they each carved out a very definite role for each running back early on, and all 3 of them kind of excelled at that role. You had your speed guy, you had your every down guy, and then you had your short yardage guy. And I guess Riggs would have been that short yardage guy, right? He was the one who, got all the touchdowns, all the glory.
Well, I think that theory works only if Jay Gruden starts using his running backs in a different way. I think probably every week after in the presser after every game in 2016, pretty much, I think Jay every week said, we're going to run the ball more. We're going to run the ball more, and he never did.
No, he doesn't he's not a run first guy. We know that.
I don't think just because we drafted a guy and we found a good guy in Rob Kelly and some other folks that Jay Gruden's going to turn into Marty Schottenheimer all of a sudden. that Jay kind of is who he is, and so I'm not sure it's reasonable to expect that just because we're bringing some guys in, and all of a sudden we're going to run the ball 30 times a game. I just don't think that's
and
Jay
I don't
Gruden.
think that's the NFL anymore, too, to some extent. There are not many teams that run it 50% of the time anymore.
Yeah, and that's really reserved to the Cowboys and the Patriots this year, who randomly was at as close as 50-50 run pass as it can get.
Yeah.
Me personally, I don't think, and I agree with Alex. Well, technically both of y'all I agree with. I don't necessarily think that it's going to be a person as run or as pass balanced as it should be, in terms of close to 50-50. But I do think that what can help this team out, percentage wise, is if you can get the run attempts upwards to between 45 to 47%. That's a winning formula right there if you decide to be that committed to the run game. And I think that's one of the things that you can strive, because obviously he's going to run the passes. Like, that's the one thing that got him his job here, is the fact that he can scheme, he can get people open in the passing game. But if you have a little bit more dedication to the run, that can take this team a long way. But I also would like to say, and I won't talk about it too long because they don't deserve the criticism, the heavy criticism, but we got to remember the offensive line did not really run the ball with, like they didn't perform well against better teams with run defenses.
That I think that's a fair point.
They're better passing. They're better.
Exactly.
They're better in pass pro
exactly.
than run
now,
than
we
running.
Look at a couple games just to point them out. The Baltimore game, we struggled to run the ball. In terms of the running back and as an offensive line. The Carolina game, the Carolina game. The second Giant game. The Eagles game, we kind of struggled. The second one, not the first one. We didn't have a problem running the ball first game. Second game, it wasn't there the whole game. And the Arizona game was iffy. We had it in the first half, went away from it. We couldn't really run in the second half. I don't know if I'm missing any type of games off the top of my head right now. I can't remember. But those are
but I think those are all good ones to kind of go back and look at if you're a fan.
Like, we have to expect more out of our offense. God damn it!
It's late at night.
Right?
It's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I need some water, man. I think I need some water. But we got to expect more out of our O line. I had to shorten it.
Yeah.
So I can say the damn word.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think a lot of people out there, Redskins fans, place the offensive line in kind of the top 3 in the league, and I'm not sure that's really accurate given the fact that they have.
I would say we're one of the top 3 pass blocking lines, but
I can agree with top 5.
I can prove that by statistic. I can. Yeah, I can show you statistically why they're one of the very top in pass pro. But another guy who's got a lot to prove here is a guy by the name of Matt Jones. Now, well, let's just remind the viewers.
I don't remember.
He wasn't at OTAs,
okay. But he's on the team.
Let's just remind people who Matt Jones is. Matt Jones was drafted in 2015 out of Florida. He was Scott McLuhan's favorite project, and at times, depending on what week you catch him on, he has performed very well. And then other times he's looked like a complete disaster. And then other times he's fumbled the ball quite a bit. So Matt is on his way out.
Complete disaster, by the way.
Well, true. Hey, the rumor, of course, not rumor. Matt has been demoted to, last string on this team. He sat out OTAs. Doug Williams has apparently been in his ear trying to cheer him up and convince him to practice harder. So I guess the question here is, does Matt Jones have a future with this team?
No.
And feel free to expand on that in any way you can, and rather than just answering no, because we have a show in which we have to talk.
I would just say no, because I think the coach has lost faith in him. I think him not coming to OTAs and playing pouty face the whole time really just showed he doesn't deserve to be here.
I mean, more on Jones, it's not just the fumbles and stuff. When you watch Matt Jones, I've said this back when we covered him. Yeah, he has no vision whatsoever. That's his fundamental problem. He doesn't run like a guy who's 6'1",
No.
235.
He
Who's
turns
not
his back
he run-
into contact. Like, I really, that's
Yeah.
one. Besides the fumble
Yeah.
and the vision,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that annoys me is the fact that he turns his back into contact. I've never seen a running back who will jump into a hole and then say, "Oh, here comes the linebacker. Let me turn my back to him."
Yeah. Or the fact that he
Especially a
runs
guy
into
who's
his own guys so
235
much.
pounds.
I mean, like, you know,
Yeah.
you're a running back. Go for the holes. You don't run into the backside of your players.
So I think the conclusion with
Yeah.
Matt is, best of luck, buddy.
Yeah.
Best of luck, and we'll see you
Great
on the other
conversation.
side.
Great.
A guy who
No.
has
Concise.
a guy who has slightly better standing on the Redskins, I think now is Mac Brown. Mac Brown's an interesting guy, also out of Florida, 5'11", 215. Hasn't played much.
No. Looks bigger than 215
but he did
if
have
you
one,
look at him on the field, by the way.
He did have one 61-yard
Yeah.
run, though. So you got to
Yeah.
give him that. Mac Brown is fighting to stay on
Right.
the team, and he's fighting to be the third running back. It's going to be a tough call considering, P. Ryan, whether he's good, bad, or otherwise, is going to be on the team, at least
Right.
next year. And Mac Brown really isn't a third down kind of guy. He's really a first
He'd
and
be a
second
special
down
team
kind of a
running
running
back.
back. So I think Mac...
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got a tough road to hoe in terms of
I will say this. I
making
like the
team.
way he runs, at least when we saw him in preseason the last couple years. He got hurt now,
Right.
twice? So I worry about that.
He was hurt last year.
Wasn't he? Because he didn't get in till late in the season.
Well, you got
I
because
feel
remember
like
he was on practice squad.
he was on the
I guess
practice
they
squad. That's
I
what
guess they
I must
moved
be
him
thinking
up
of.
when they wasn't fucking with Matt Jones anymore.
Right. That's
that's what
It
happened.
wasn't
Yeah,
injury.
Mac
Sorry.
hadn't been injured, but yeah, he's bounced back and forth between practice
Yeah.
squads. So I like Mac. I like the way Mac runs too. I think he
He
runs
reminds me of
hard.
Liddell Betts a
I
little bit,
think
the way he runs.
A little bit, yeah. That's not a bad comparison. Listen, I mean, Liddell had his
Yeah.
time here. Liddell, when he got his opportunity, did
Right.
pretty
2006
well.
was a big deal.
Yeah, when Porter's got
Yeah.
hurt. I remember.
Right. So I think Mac Brown has a lot to prove, but I think we all like him. I think I like him better than Jones in terms of his running style and
Right.
his ability to look like an NFL running back on a consistent basis. So I'm rooting
I
for
think
him.
Yeah.
one of the
I
questions.
certainly wouldn't root against him.
Yeah, I root for him as well. I think one of the questions is: are we going to keep an extra tight end, a fourth tight end? Are we going to keep a
Or a
seventh
fourth running back?
receiver?
Right.
Or six. I don't know how they're going to play it, or are they going to
I
keep a
just can't
fourth running back?
I can't keep.
Yeah.
I can't see a seventh receiver. I mean, I'm not even sure they're going to keep six receivers.
To me, it's all
frankly.
about who can return kicks, who can
contribute on
go
special
down the
teams.
field.
And
Yeah.
I think Mac has a proven, like, he's been here long enough. But you also have guys. You also have a couple guys at receiver that can be special team candidates. Like, it just depends on how
Sure.
they're going to be able to play. So,
Mm-hmm.
it all depends. And I think Mac Brown. It's unfortunate because I like the way he runs as well. But I just think that it's politics, man.
He's caught up in a
So,
numbers
Yeah,
game.
and I
a
don't
little
know.
bit.
I mean,
kind
I
of
don't
a
have
numbers
any of his stats in front of me here, Steve. I don't know if you can tell me readily.
Right.
Is he probably not practice squad eligible at this point? Because he's played enough games. I feel
No.
like.
Let's see, 9 games. I mean, he's
Yeah.
getting close. I don't have it right in
That's
front
all
of
right.
me. No, but he's getting real close. The last guy we have here to talk about is a guy who sort of caught the attention of the hearts and minds of the Redskins fan base last
Right.
year. Was Mr. Keith Marshall
Right,
from
early
Georgia.
on.
Now, early on, until he kind of laid an egg in
I was
preseason,
so
then he got
glad.
hurt, and he's out for the
Mm-hmm.
season. But people need to remember here, in case everybody doesn't recall. I know Jamal and Alex, you do, but this guy started ahead of Todd Gurley at one
Yeah,
point at Georgia.
five-star recruit,
and-
I think.
5-star recruit, and his career really got ruined by injuries. That's what happened to him. He got injured and kind of moved around. But this guy is an elite athlete by NFL standards. He's a burner. He's running a 4.3 40. He's got a 30-inch vertical. He's got some decent strength to him. He looks good on paper. I think the criticism of Keith is that his film doesn't look quite as good as you'd expect from a guy with his athletic ability. And that's kind of the knock on Keith. I haven't seen enough of him to, to really give too much of an evaluation. Right. He didn't look that good in preseason. I'm willing to give him a pass since he was a rookie in his first couple games.
I don't know how healthy he was. I mean, considering we had to put him on IR.
Yeah, I was gonna say not much is probably gonna seeing as he only played a couple games in terms of preseason last year. I don't see much changing this preseason.
No,
personally, I don't see much heading into preseason. I don't see much changing, but. I mean, the thing that killed Keith was his impatience. I think that, or his lack of patience. I think that what we saw a lot from Keith is that when he got the ball, all he knew was go, 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 go.
Right.
And he'd hit a hole and he'd run into his offensive lineman, or he'd trip and fall, or he wouldn't really see the hole or let one develop. And that's what got him in trouble a lot. And even when he hurt himself in the Jets game, I remember it. And this one was the hole was there, and I think it was a stretch. It was a stretch run, and he hit the edge, tripped, hit his elbow, out for the season. But I think that my point was, sometimes he's just too impatient. He tries to go too fast instead of letting things come to him. So it's one of the things he'll have to work on this offseason. I don't know if he's been getting those teachings from the running backs coach. I believe his name's Eddie Jordan. I don't know if he's been getting that right now, but I think that's one of the things that he needs to work on. So.
Yeah, I think Jordan's a pretty good running backs coach from what it appears from the cheap seats here. Yeah, I think Keith is probably looking at a year of practice squad. Realistically, I don't know if we have time to debate this. We're way over time, but I think it's pretty clear that the running backs, in some order, Rob Kelly, Samaje Perine, and then Chris Thompson, there's your stable. And if they keep a fourth one, Mac Brown and Keith Marshall are probably going to fight it out. And
they probably will keep a fourth one. I think they kept 4 last year. Let's say it's 4, and Brown probably gets in, and Marshall's on the practice squad like you. Yeah.
Right. So let's, real quick, before we wrap the show up here, we're not going to read any comments this time because we've kind of run out of time, but we're going to do the poll real fast. The poll question this week was, who do you think will be the Redskins starting running back by the end of the coming season? Meaning we go through the whole season. We've seen everybody who emerges from the battles as starting running back. The choices were in alphabetical order: Mac Brown, Rob Kelly, Samaje Perine, and other. So we're gonna save, because I know I know Jamal cheats at this. We're gonna save him for last.
Steve listened recently. All right, so I'm gonna say that the public went with Fat Rob. I probably would go that way too, but just for fun, I'm gonna say Chris Thompson starts wowing people and somehow ends up a starter end of the season.
Okay, so you would have voted on my choice. You would have voted other than in my choice then. Okay. Jamal, what do you think?
I myself picked Fat Rob, and since I'm a man of honesty, I will tell you that I did not see the final results this week like I did last week. So I don't know what they voted.
I didn't vote this week, so I have no idea.
But I would assume that fans voted for I want to say Perine. Yeah, I think that they voted for Perine.
Well, they did not vote for Perine. Rob Kelly won the vote by a vote of 48%. Perine was second, coming in second at 44%. Yeah. And then Mac Brown and other, which is probably going to be Chris Thompson, each had 4%. So the clear battle amongst the fans is Rob Kelly versus Perine. For the reasons I stated, I personally would have voted for Rob Kelly had I voted. I think he's going to grab the job. So
by the way, I'm happy with all 3 being on this roster. Let me just say that too.
Absolutely,
I think we're in a lot better shape than we were last year.
Yeah. Well, guys, unless anybody has anything else, we are way over time, I think, now at this point. So we're going to wrap up the show here. We will have another show for you next week. We're going to be covering special teams, I believe, in our position group breakdown. We'll say that we have a player interview yeah, it's our last one. We have a player interview coming up in 2 weeks. We'll keep that to ourselves, to the identity of the player, to ourselves for now, but that will be in 2 weeks. And then we'll be in the heart of training camp. One way or another, we will be at training camp in some capacity or another. That's still being arranged. So we've got a lot of good stuff for you guys coming up. And we will see you on the next show. Peace out.